Minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's an honor for me as a new member of Congress to sit here on the floor of the House with my colleagues to actually honor all of our living Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. I'm proud to work with my colleague Tulsi Gabbard from the great state of Hawaii to work in a bipartisan way to make sure that these heroes that protected our freedoms, that have protected our ability to stand here and debate the issues that we debate every single day, by their heroism and by their fight for this country. Now, Mr. Speaker, we're going to begin this process through the 1 minute, but we're also going to have an hour and a half of a special order that's going to be a bipartisan, unprecedented special order to honor these American heroes. And I stand here today to say thank you to each and every one of them. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank my colleague, Congressman Cardenas, for bringing everyone together to support immigration reform in recognition of Constitution Day, Citizenship Day, and Constitution Week. From Angel Island to Ellis Island, from our northern to southern borders, from the fertile earth of Steinbeck's countries to innovation's epicenter of Silicon Valley, immigration issues and immigrants have touched every corner and facet of our nation. As representative of California's 17th District, I have witnessed how this immigrant spirit is an entrepreneur spirit. In fact, 40% of the largest U.S. companies have been founded by immigrants or their children. In Silicon Valley between 1995 and 2005, more than half of all the major technology and engineering firms were founded by an immigrant. People come to our shores with different dreams, aspirations, and needs. We must support strong provisions for those guest workers who toil the earth and harvest food for our dinner tables. We must support students who come to this country seeking top education and then allow them to kindle their entrepreneurial spark into our economy. We must support high-skilled immigrants as well as their families who will strengthen our talented workforce. We must never turn our back on our married children and siblings just because they're above a certain age. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
I rise to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I join with my colleagues to honor those recipients of the Medal of Honor. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Colonel Wesley L. Fox. That's Wesley Lee Fox of the United States Marine Corps. Colonel Fox currently resides in Blacksburg, Virginia. Colonel Fox was awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty in the Republic of Vietnam. Colonel Fox's company came under intense fire from a large, well-concealed enemy force. Colonel Fox was wounded along with the other members of the command group. Colonel Fox personally neutralized one enemy position and calmly ordered an assault against the hostile emplacements. Colonel Fox refused medical attention so he could establish a defensive posture and supervise the preparation of casualties for medical evacuation. His indomitable courage, inspiring initiative, and unwavering devotion to duty in the face of grave personal danger inspired his Marines to such aggressive action that they overcame all enemy resistance and destroyed a large bunker complex. It is for his outstanding heroism and leadership that I am proud and honored to remember the actions of Colonel Wesley L. Fox. And I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Hawaii seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm so proud to stand here today to join Congressman Rodney Davis from Illinois and the rest of my colleagues as we honor the 79 living Medal of Honor recipients, which includes U.S. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Alan J. Kellogg, who's lived in Hawaii for more than 25 years and who calls my hometown of Kailua his home as well. Under the leadership of Sergeant Kellogg, a small unit from Company G was evacuating a fallen comrade when the unit came under enemy fire from the surrounding jungle. What he did is the stuff of legends. After an enemy soldier hurled a hand grenade at the Marines, Sergeant Kellogg quickly forced the grenade into the mud, threw himself over the grenade, and absorbed the full effects of its detonation with his body, saving his unit. Although suffering multiple injuries to his chest and his right shoulder, Sergeant Kellogg continued to direct his men until all reached safety. It's for his unwavering devotion to duty and his continued service to our country that I'm so proud to honor and remember the actions of Staff Sergeant Alan J. Kellogg, Jr. here today. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Just out for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This evening I would like to recognize also a Medal of Honor recipient from the state of Alabama and to honor Colonel Ole Mize of Gadsden, Alabama, who resides in the 4th Congressional District, in which I'm honored to represent. Colonel Mize was in the United States Army. He was with the 3rd Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for outstanding courage in action on June the 10th and the 11th, 1953 in Korea. His company was responsible for the defense of a vital position that was attacked by a well-organized enemy force. Colonel Mize charged through an intense barrage of fire to rescue a friend who had fallen. Following the successful rescue, Colonel Mize returned to his post and dug in. Although under duress, Colonel Mize held the line, fighting to keep his men safe. Colonel Mize protected his fellow soldiers, called in artillery support, and led a successful counterattack. It is for his unflinching courage and valor that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Ole Mize, and the 4th District of Alabama, the state of Alabama, and the United States Congress is very honored to recognize the work that he did in Korea. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am proud to rise today to honor the heroic efforts in Vietnam of 2 veterans of the United States Marine Corps who today call San Diego their home, Colonel Robert Joseph Modrievsky and Colonel J. Vargas. Colonel Modrievsky was the commanding officer of Company K and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action. Though wounded, he refused to allow his men to be overrun during an attack on a well-fortified enemy in a superior position. Although they sustained many casualties, Colonel Modrievsky and his men were successful in repelling the enemy. Colonel Vargas served as commanding officer of Company G and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extraordinary heroism in action. Although wounded, Colonel Vargas and his men led a bold attack on heavily defended enemy forces. On the 2nd day, Colonel Vargas saw his battalion commander go down and, after advancing to his position, carried him to safety. For their unparalleled heroism and gallantry in action, exemplifying the spirit of the Marine Corps, I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Modrievsky and Colonel Vargas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman from is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Marine Sergeant Dakota Meyer. Sergeant Meyer was a scout sniper with the 3rd Marine Corps, and while maintaining security at a patrol rallying point, an element of Sergeant Meyer's team was moving on foot through a village when they were ambushed. Sergeant Meyer and a fellow Marine raced to provide additional support for the ambush squad and help remove them from the ambush. Despite concentrated enemy assaults, Meyer made 2 specific trips into the ambush area to evacuate 24 Afghan soldiers. He was then wounded by gunfire. After that, he made additional trips into the ambush area to recover additional wounded soldiers and provided fire to help the remaining U.S. and Afghan soldiers fight their way out of the ambush. For his heroic efforts, Dakota Meyer was awarded the Medal of Honor on September 8, 2009. When Douglas MacArthur gave his farewell speech to West Point, his speech was entitled Duty, Honor, Country. I think those 3 words reflect the efforts of Dakota Meyer and his entire team, and today I pay tribute to Dakota Meyer of the 1st Congressional District of Kentucky. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 4 of the 79 living Congressional Medal of Honor recipients live in the congressional district that I have the great honor to represent. I will speak on 3 tonight, but I rise first to honor the incredible courage and outstanding heroism of Staff Sergeant Ty Michael Carter of the United States Army, America's newest Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. Staff Sergeant Carter was a cavalry scout with Bravo Troop and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme bravery in action on October 3, 2009 in Afghanistan. On that morning, Sergeant Carter's outpost came under heavy fire and intense fire from all sides. Staff Sergeant Carter charged to an exposed forward position and provided deadly suppressive fire into the oncoming enemy attack, stalling their advance. When a fellow soldier was critically wounded, Staff Sergeant Carter, though wounded as well, courageously charged again through the enemy onslaught to provide aid to his comrade. Sergeant Carter's heroic actions and tactical skill were central to beating back the enemy offensive and saving numerous lives. It is for his incomprehensible courage that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Staff Sergeant Ty Michael Carter, a resident of Yelm, Washington. I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, provide extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Command Sergeant Major Robert Martin Patterson of the United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Patterson was a fire team leader of the 3rd Platoon, 17th Cavalry Regiment, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on May 6, 1968 in Vietnam. When the 3rd Platoon became pinned down by interlocking enemy fire and rocket-propelled grenades, Command Sergeant Major Patterson led 2 men in quickly silencing an enemy bunker with rifle and grenade assaults. When Command Sergeant Major Patterson noticed the enemy engaging his men from hidden spider holes, he entered the complex and single-handedly conducted an assault on their position. In so doing, the Sergeant Major successfully destroyed 5 enemy bunkers, killing 8 and capturing 7 enemy weapons. It is for his dauntless courage and heroism that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Command Sergeant Major Robert Martin Patterson. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition?
Speaker, I once again ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Sergeant First Class Leroy Arthur Petrie of the United States Army.
Gentlemen will suspend. The chair only entertains one 1-minute request at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Minnesota, for what what purpose do you seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Lieutenant Colonel Alfred Velasquez Rascon of the United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Rascon was a medic with the 173rd Airborne and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extraordinary courage in action on March 16, 1966 in Vietnam. The following is directly from his commendation. Disregarding heavy enemy fire, Lieutenant Colonel Rascon rushed to the aid of the wounded machine gunners and placed himself as a shield between them and the enemy. After saving 2 men, he re-entered the line of enemy fire to retrieve an abandoned machine gun, allowing for suppressive fire while he performed first aid on the wounded. When the sergeant of the platoon went down with injuries, Lieutenant Colonel Rascon once again placed himself as a shield between the wounded man and the enemy. Although sustaining multiple wounds and be given last rites himself, Lieutenant Colonel Rascon refused to leave the field until every last man had been retreated and removed. Lieutenant Colonel Rascon came out of retirement and joined the United States Army Reserve and served this nation in both Iraq and Afghanistan in our recent conflicts. It's for his amazing valor and heroism that I am proud and humbled to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Alfred Velasquez Rascon, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask consent to address the House for 1 1 minute, please.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Marine Corps Sergeant Robert Emmett O'Malley of GUTHRIE, Texas. Sergeant O'Malley was a squad leader with Company I, 3rd Marines during the Vietnam War and was awarded the Medal of Honor for supreme bravery in action on August 18, 1965. Sergeant O'Malley's unit came under heavy enemy fire while conducting an amphibious assault on an enemy position during Operation Starlight. Disregarding his own safety, Sergeant O'Malley charged forward, killing 8 enemy soldiers. Then he directed his men to fire on the enemy with deadly effect. He also rallied his squad to help an adjacent Marine unit suffering heavy casualties. Although he was wounded, Sergeant O'Malley refused to allow medics to treat him, insisting instead on helping evacuate other wounded Marines. Even after being wounded a 3rd time, Sergeant O'Malley refused to yield the engagement until all of his men were accounted for. It's for his valor, leadership, and courageous efforts on behalf of fellow Marines that I am proud to represent Sergeant Robert Emmett O'Malley and to represent him in the 11th Congressional District of Texas. And I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I'm thrilled tonight to join my colleagues in honoring these extraordinary men and women who have been awarded the Medal of Honor, and I rise today to honor the manifest bravery and courage of my constituent, Captain Paul William Bucca of the United States Army in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Captain Bucca was awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry in action during March 16th through 19th in 1968 in Vietnam. For 3 days on a mission to seek and destroy enemy positions, Captain Bucca led his 89-man unit through intense combat. On March 18th, the North Vietnamese battalion with numerical superiority pinned down the forward units of his company. When Captain Bucca discovered the origins of the heaviest fire, he maneuvered into position and single-handedly eliminated the enemy position. Due to his exceptional leadership and guidance during the 3-day engagement, Captain Bucca's men held their position, refused to yield, and inflicted considerable casualties upon the superior enemy force. It is for his extraordinary heroism and exemplary leadership that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Captain Paul William Bucca. And I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Alabama seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Lieutenant Colonel James Michael Sprayberry of the United States Army. Raised in Sylacauga, Alabama, he joined the Army in Montgomery, Alabama in 1967. Lieutenant Colonel Sprayberry was just 21 years old and serving with the 1st Cavalry Division in Vietnam when on April 25, 1968, he engaged in extraordinary acts of heroism for which he was awarded the Medal of Honor. On that day, his company commander and many of his fellow soldiers were wounded and separated from the unit. When a daytime rescue attempt was deterred, Lieutenant Colonel Sprayberry organized and led a nighttime patrol to eliminate the enemy fire and rescue his fellow surrounded soldiers. When the rescue patrol came under intense enemy machine gun fire, he single-handedly conducted multiple attacks against multiple enemy machine gun bunkers and eliminated them one by one with hand grenades. After destroying the bunkers, he was able to direct the isolated men to safety. The operation was a resounding success and resulted in the safe return of many fellow soldiers. It is for his conspicuous gallantry and indomitable spirit that I am proud to honor the actions of Lieutenant Colonel James Michael Sprayberry.
Where's he from? For what purpose does the gentleman from New Mexico seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Staff Sergeant Hiroshi Miramura of the United States Army, who calls Gallup, New Mexico, home. Sergeant Miramura was the 3rd Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme bravery in action from April 24th, 25th, 1951 near Taejeon-ni, Korea. Staff Sergeant Miramura's company was holding a defensive position when a strong enemy force launched a surprise attack to overrun them. Understanding the severity of the situation, Staff Sergeant Miramura hustled to the line, plunged into the oncoming enemy forces with his bayonet, killing 10 of the attackers. During the second assault, he used his machine gun, taking out the enemy. He insisted that his men pull back while he covered their withdrawal. While covering his men and unloading his ammunition on the enemy's advance, Staff Sergeant Miramura killed at least 50 and provided a safe withdrawal of his unit. It is for his heroism and distinguished service that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Staff Sergeant Hiroshi Mayamura. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Corporal Rodolfo Rudy Perez Hernandez of the United States Army. Corporal Hernandez was with Company G, 187th Airborne Regimental Combat Team, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for visible gallantry in action on May 31st, 1951 in Korea. His platoon was in a defensive position on Hill 420 when it came under heavy attack by enemy forces. Although his comrades were forced to withdraw, Corporal Hernandez stood his ground. When his machine gun jammed, he valiantly charged with rifle and bayonet straight into the attacking force when he was seriously injured by a grenade blast. Due to Corporal Hernandez's heroic charge, the enemy advance was stalled long enough for his unit to mount a counteroffensive and retake the hill. It is for this extraordinary courage in action that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Corporal Rodolfo Perez Hernandez. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the remainder of my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Arizona seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Major Frederick Edgar Ferguson of the United States Army. Major Ferguson served in the 1st Cavalry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for supreme gallantry in action on January 31st of 1968 in the Republic of Vietnam. Today he lives in Chandler, Arizona, in the district I have the honor of representing. Major Ferguson was the commander of a helicopter monitoring an emergency call from wounded passengers of a downed helicopter under heavy attack. Without hesitation, Major Ferguson volunteered to respond to the call, despite warnings to stay clear of the area. Major Ferguson displayed superior flying skill by landing his aircraft under heavy fire. And although the helicopter sustained severe damage as the wounded men boarded, Major Ferguson flew his crippled aircraft to safety. That day, Major Ferguson saved the lives of 5 fellow servicemen with his brave and selfless act. It is for his outstanding display of bravery that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Major Frederick Edgar Ferguson. Thank you, Major Ferguson. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Specialist 4th Class Frank A. Herter of the United States Army. Specialist Herter was with the Company A 506th Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme bravery in action on January 29, 1968 in Vietnam. When 5 enemy soldiers charged the position held by Specialist Herta and 2 fellow soldiers, one of the attackers' grenades landed amongst the men. Without hesitating, Specialist Herta threw himself upon it, shielding the blast with his body. Specialist Herta's valiant and selfless actions saved the lives of his 2 comrades. For his extraordinary bravery and commitment, I am proud today to honor and remember the actions of Specialist Frank A. Herta. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Staff Sergeant Salvatore Augustine Gunta of the United States Army. Staff Sergeant Gunta was with the 173rd Airborne Brigade Combat Team and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on October 25, 2007 in Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Gunta and his team were ambushed by heavy enemy fire. After sprinting for cover and returning fire, Staff Sergeant Gunta raced to his wounded squad leader to assist him. While disregarding the withering enemy fire, Staff Sergeant Gunta continued to assist the wounded and link up with men separated from his unit. When he observed 2 insurgents carrying away one of his men, the staff sergeant charged their position, killing one enemy and wounding the other. He then carried his comrade away from the exposed position and began to administer first aid before his squad caught up to provide security. It is for his extreme heroism and valor that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Staff Sergeant Salvatore A. Gunta. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Signal Mountain, Tennessee resident Technical Sergeant Charles Henry Coolidge of the United States Army. Technical Sergeant Coolidge was with the 36th Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on October 24, 1944, near Belmont-sur-Butant, France. As Technical Sergeant Coolidge led a platoon to cover part of the 3rd Battalion, they ran into an enemy force and engaged in a fierce firefight. With no officer present, Technical Sergeant Coolidge assumed command of the new replacements and led his men through 3 days of hard fighting. Armed with a bazooka, he advanced within 25 yards of the tanks before it failed to function. Then, gathering as many hand grenades as he could, he inflicted heavy casualties upon the enemy. It is for his superior leadership and bravery that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Technical Sergeant Charles Henry Coolidge. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to tell the story of a courageous Congressional Medal of Honor recipient living in Alabama's 5th Congressional District. Pilot Lieutenant Colonel Leo Thorsness was on a mission over North Vietnam when he lost his wingman. As the crew members parachuted to the ground, Colonel Thorsness destroyed a MiG-17 that was threatening their safety. Low on fuel, Colonel Thorsness went in search of a refueling tanker, but upon hearing that the downed men were again threatened, this time by 4 MiGs, he immediately returned to their aid. Low on fuel, perilously close to crashing himself, Colonel Thorsness attacked the 4 MiGs, damaging one, driving them away, saving the downed men and their rescuers. Then he flew further afield to refuel, aiding another plane that needed the emergency fueling station. Lieutenant Colonel Thorsness's extraordinary heroism, self-sacrifice, and personal bravery saved many lives, and our nation is forever grateful for his service. Mr. Speaker, I yield.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas seek recognition?
Seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Specialist First Class John Philip Baca of the United States Army. Specialist Baca was a member of the 1st Cavalry Division, the 1st Team. His Medal of Honor was awarded for extraordinary bravery in action on February 10, 1970 in Vietnam. On that February day, a platoon from Specialist Baca's company came under enemy fire. Upon realizing his team could be of assistance, Specialist Baca jumped into action. He led his unit through enemy fire to a position within the patrol's defensive perimeter. But before they were able to attack, an enemy grenade was thrown directly into their unit. Specialist Baca covered the grenade with his helmet and fell on it, absorbing its blast. His quick action bravely saved 8 of his fellow soldiers from death or serious injury. It is for this brave act and his unwavering courage that I am proud to honor the actions of Specialist 4th Class John Philip Baca.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Dakota seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the heroic efforts of former Staff Sergeant Clinton Romeshay of the United States Army. Staff Sergeant Romeshay was with the 4th Infantry Division and awarded the Medal of Honor for his acts of gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his own life in Afghanistan on October 3, 2009. Attacked by an estimated 300 Taliban fighters, Staff Sergeant Romeshay moved uncovered to conduct a reconnaissance and seek reinforcements. Romeshay took out one enemy machine gun team and was wounded attempting to take out the second. Despite his wounds, he continued fighting and directed air support, resulting in the elimination of over 30 enemy fighters. Clint, his wife Tamara, and their 3 children, Desi, Gwen, and Colin, live in Minot, North Dakota, and are the pride of our state. It is for his extraordinary heroism and resolute commitment to his fellow soldiers I am proud to honor Staff Sergeant Clinton Romeshay and yield back the remainder of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Corporal Dwayne Edgar Dewey of the United States Marine Corps. Corporal Dewey was with the 1st Marine Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on April 6, 1952, near Panmunjom, Korea. While receiving medical attention for his own wounds after a fierce night attack by a numerically superior and aggressive enemy force, an enemy grenade landed close to the position of Corporal Dewey and his fellow soldiers. Disregarding his own safety and intense pain, Corporal Dewey pulled his corpsman to the ground, shouted a warning to other Marines, and covered the grenade with his own body, absorbing the explosion and saving his comrades from possible injury or death. It is for his indomitable heroism and consummate devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and to remember the actions of Corporal Dwayne Edgar Dewey. And Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a nice evening to be introducing what I have to say, but this roll call of heroes is inspiring to any and all Americans, including myself. Yesterday, I dropped into the hopper a bill entitled Fort Hood Heroes Act, H.R. 3111. This bill was introduced with 119 original co-sponsors on a bipartisan basis. This bill declares the shooting that took place at Fort Hood an act of terrorism that should have been prevented, and that Natal Hassan was an Islamic extremist. The bill would award Purple Hearts to soldiers who were killed or wounded in the attack, and award the Secretary of Defense Medal of Freedom to civilians who were killed or wounded in the attack. This bill would provide benefits to the victims of the attack who were killed or wounded and their families during the killing and wounding that occurred at Fort Hood for the soldiers, and would declare that this was done for soldiers in a combat zone at the hands of an enemy of the United States, that the civilian DOD employees by hostile action while serving alongside the armed forces during a contingency operation in a terrorism attack. The possible benefits they will receive will be combat-related special compensation, maximum coverage under a serviceman's group insurance, tax breaks after death in combat zone or terrorist attack, special pay for subjection to hostile enemy fire or imminent danger, and unearned portions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Colorado seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Major Drew Dennis Dix of the United States Army, who hails from the hometown of heroes, Pueblo, Colorado. Major Dix was a military advisor for the Army of the Republic of Vietnam and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on January 31, 1968. Major Dix led a force to rescue trapped civilians from a city. When the rescue team entered the city, they were greeted with intense automatic rifle fire and machine gun fire from the Viet Cong. Major Dix personally engaged and killed 6 Viet Cong in a building where 2 civilians were trapped. The following day, Dix assembled a 20-man force to clear the Viet Cong out of the city. The group captured 20 and attacked several who entered the residence of the deputy province chief, successfully rescuing the official's wife and children. It is for this indomitable heroism and supreme bravery that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Major Drew Dennis Dix. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to honor the heroic efforts of Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Eric Ray of the United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Ray, who lives in Tarpon Springs, Florida, was a platoon leader in the 25th Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for profound bravery in action on June 19, 1969 in Vietnam. When one of his patrol teams was ambushed, Lieutenant Colonel Ray set up a defensive perimeter while eliminating multiple Viet Cong positions with grenades and rifle fire. The Lieutenant Colonel Ray then began directing air and medical support into the area. When grenade fell between two of his men, he threw himself upon it, shielding them from the blast, but sustaining multiple shrapnel wounds himself. Though wounded, Lieutenant Colonel Ray remained on the field and provided effective fire support until the last of his men were safely extracted. It is for his courage and commitment to his men, that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Eric Ray. And I yield back the time. Thank you very much. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Specialist 5th Class Clarence Eugene Sasser of the United States Army. A native Texan from Rocheron, Specialist 5th Class Clarence Sasser was with the 9th Infantry Division and received his Medal of Honor for actions of immense gallantry on January the 10th, 1968 in Vietnam. While his company was making an air assault, they were surrounded at the landing zone and suffered 30 casualties in the first few minutes. In order to assist the wounded, Specialist 5th Class Sasser ran through open fire several times. He ignored his own need for medical attention in order to provide care to his fellow men. When both of his legs were immobilized, Sergeant 1st Class Sasser dragged himself into a position to assist others and then encouraged soldiers to crawl to safety, where he tended to their wounds until evacuation. It is for his upholding of the highest military values that I am proud to honor the actions of Specialist 5th Class Clarence Eugene Sasser. I'm Randy Weber, and that's the way it is in America.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Private First Class Ernest Edison West of the United States Army. Private First Class West served with Company L, 25th Infantry Division, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action in Korea on October 12, 1952. When Private First Class West's patrol was ambushed, he ordered his fellow men to withdraw while he braved enemy fire to reach and assist the patrol leader. In the evacuation process, he and his wounded leader came under intense enemy attack. Private First Class West used his body to shield the wounded officer and killed the attacking enemy. Although Private First Class West lost his eye and was seriously wounded, he returned again through intense fire to help evacuate more wounded soldiers. Because of his valiant efforts and extraordinary military spirit, I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Private First Class Ernest Edison West of Kentucky's 4th District. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from South Dakota seek recognition?
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor a hero of our country and the state of South Dakota, Specialist Michael John Fitzmaurice of the United States Army. Specialist Fitzmaurice, serving in the 3D Platoon, Troop D, was awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery in action on March 23, 1971 in Vietnam. When 3 enemy explosive charges landed in their bunker, Specialist Fitzmaurice quickly removed 2. He smothered the other charge with his body and flak vest. Despite his injuries, he charged the enemy, engaging at times in hand-to-hand combat. Fitzmaurice refused medical evacuation and continued fighting. It is because of his extraordinary bravery and devotion to duty that I am proud to honor the actions of Specialist Michael John Fitzmaurice today. And with that, I yield back my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Kansas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Lieutenant Colonel Charles Chris Hagemeister of the United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Hagemeister was with the 1st Cavalry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on March 20th, 1967 in Vietnam. When Lieutenant Colonel Hagemeister's platoon came under attack, he disregarded his own safety and raced through deadly fire to provide aid to 2 of his wounded comrades. He then crawled forward to assist and encourage the platoon leader and other soldiers. While under fire at close range, the lieutenant colonel took a rifle from a fallen soldier, killed a sniper, 3 advancing soldiers, and silenced an enemy machine gunner. Unable to move the wounded, he again braved enemy fire and returned with help. Lieutenant Colonel Hagemeister then continued to administer aid and help remove his wounded brothers. It is for his extraordinary bravery and selflessness that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Charles Chris Hagemeister. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Request unanimous consent to address the House floor for 1 minute to revise and extend my
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the valiant efforts of Private First Class Arthur J. Jackson of the United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Arthur J. Jackson was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy in Japan. When Private First Class Arthur J. Jackson platoon left flank advance was held up by the fire of Japanese troops, Private First Class Jackson charged a large pillbox housing approximately 35 enemy soldiers. Pouring his automatic fire into the opening of the fixed insulation to trap the occupying troops, he hurled white phosphorus grenades and explosive charges, demolishing the pillbox and killing the enemies. He advanced 2 smaller positions and stormed 1 gun position after another until he succeeded in wiping out a total of 12 pillboxes and 50 Japanese soldiers. His gallant initiative and heroic conduct in the face of extreme peril reflect the highest credit upon Private First Class Jackson and the U.S. Naval Service. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Private First Class Arthur J. Jackson. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Medal of Honor recipient Don J. Jenkins of the United States Army for his brave service in Vietnam. Under heavy crossfire, Don Jenkins maneuvered forward to an exposed position and began placing suppressive fire on the enemy. He exposed himself to extremely heavy fire when he repeatedly ran and crawled across open terrain to obtain resupplies of ammunition until he had exhausted all that was available for his machine gun. Displaying tremendous presence of mind, he then armed himself with 2 anti-tank weapons and by himself maneuvered through the rapid, hostile fire to within 20 meters of an enemy bunker to destroy that position. After moving back to the friendly defensive perimeter long enough to secure yet another weapon, a grenade launcher, Don Jenkins moved forward to a position providing no protection and resumed placing accurate fire on the enemy until his ammunition was again exhausted. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor actions of Private First Class Don J. Jenkins of Morgantown, Kentucky. I have the great privilege of knowing him personally, and I'm proud to call him my friend. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Master Sergeant Richard Allen Pittman of the United States Marine Corps. Master Sergeant Pittman was with Company I, 1st Division, and was awarded the Medal of Honor, Consummate Gallantry in Action on July 24, 1966, in Vietnam. When the company fell under intense enemy fire, Master Sergeant Pittman grabbed a machine gun and rushed toward the front to provide support. Through withering enemy fire, Master Sergeant Pittman rushed to the front of the patrol and eliminated multiple enemy positions. Master Sergeant Pittman then charged an additional 50 yards to retrieve 3 downed Marines. In establishing a defensive position, he was able to engage and inflict heavy casualties upon an enemy force of 40 and successfully ward off their advance, saving the lives of many of the company's men. It is for his bold fighting spirit and extreme devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Master Sergeant Richard Allen Pittman.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great pride that I rise today to honor a true American hero, Sergeant Alan James Lynch of Gurnee, Illinois. Sergeant Lynch received the Medal of Honor for his brave actions in the Vietnam War, where he risked his life to save 3 of his comrades. On December 15, 1967, Lynch, serving as a radio telephone operator for the United States Army, ran through open enemy fire to rescue 3 wounded soldiers. As the rest of the company withdrew, he stayed behind and single-handedly defended their position for 2 hours until reinforcement could be sent to evacuate them. Sergeant Lynch was just 22 years old at the time. His meritorious actions extend far beyond his service in Vietnam. He continues to serve as a staunch advocate for disabled veterans and remains an inspiration to the community, often visiting with local schools and challenging students to be the next great leaders of America. I commend his actions and his continued service to my community and to our country, a true inspiration. I'm proud to honor Sergeant Alan James Lynch and his outstanding courage. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask to speak for 1 minute and revise the same.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Major James Allen Taylor of the United States Army. I've personally known Major Taylor in the North State for about a decade, through personal involvement with veterans issues and events in the North State. I also wish to extend my heartfelt thanks to my colleague, Representative Jared Huffman, whose district Major Taylor actually resides in, and also Major Taylor had been a constituent of mine for several years when I represented Trinity County. Major Taylor was with the 1st Cavalry Regiment and awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry in action in July 1969 in Vietnam. His men were engaged in an attack on a fortified position when a cavalry assault vehicle was hit and all 5 crew members were wounded. Major Taylor extracted the wounded despite heavy enemy fire. When a second vehicle was hit, Major Taylor moved forward again to rescue the wounded. While evacuating the wounded, Major Taylor engaged the enemy, killing several. At the evacuation point, a final vehicle was hit. Again, Major Taylor assisted in removing the wounded men and ensured that all wounded were safely evacuated. I've met and known Major Taylor, again, for several years, and it is my privilege to call him a friend. It is for his selfless spirit and service to his crew that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Major James Allen Taylor. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, seek consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Lieutenant Michael Edwin Thornton of the United States Navy in Montgomery, Texas. Lieutenant Thornton was the senior advisor to Vietnamese Navy SEAL patrols and was awarded his Medal of Honor for extreme bravery in action on March 6, 1976 in Vietnam. Lieutenant Thornton and his team snuck behind enemy lines. At sunup, the team made contact with an enemy force, engaged in a furious firefight with the enemy, inflicting many casualties before withdrawing. When some of the men were cut off from the team, Lieutenant Thornton went back in through enemy fire to find the wounded men and carry them to safety. In killing several enemy combatants and hauling the wounded out, Lieutenant Thornton saved the life of his superior officer, and it is for this heroic spirit and service to our nation that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Michael Edwin Thornton. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Specialist 4th Class Gary George Wetzel of the United States Army. Specialist 4th Class Wetzel served in the 173rd Assault Helicopter Company and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his extreme heroism in action in Vietnam on January 8, 1968. While going to the aid of his aircraft commander, Specialist 4th Class Wetzel became critically wounded. Although his left arm was severed, Specialist 4th Class Wetzel held his position and engaged the enemy. After eliminating 3, he refused treatment and attempted to assist his aircraft commander. Due to the severity of his wounds, Specialist 4th Class Wetzel lost consciousness. Once he regained consciousness, he persisted in his efforts to drag himself to the aid of his fellow crewmen and assisted in bringing the commander to safety. Because of his valiant efforts towards his fellow crewmen, I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Specialist 4th Class Gary George Wetzel.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of a man from Manville, Texas, and an American hero, Colonel James Fleming of the United States Air Force. Colonel Fleming was a pilot of a helicopter in the 20th Special Operations Squadron. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry in action on November 26, 1968 in Vietnam. On that day, Colonel Fleming was ordered to rescue a 6-man Special Forces patrol that was pinned down by enemy fighters. Already aware of one downed helicopter in the area, Colonel Fleming dropped his helicopter into the combat zone. Despite a failed first attempt and low fuel, Colonel Fleming did what every member of the U.S. military is trained to do. He left no man behind. He came back and hovered with an open cargo door while his helicopter was being raked by enemy fire. The 6 Green Berets jumped into his helicopter with the enemy 10 feet behind. Thanks to his heroic efforts, the 6 Green Berets made it out alive. I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel James Fleming. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of United States Army Colonel Walter Joseph Marm, Jr. of Fremont, North Carolina. Colonel Marm demonstrated indomitable courage and was awarded the Medal of Honor during a combat operation in Vietnam. As his company was moving to relieve a surrounded friendly unit, he realized that his platoon was receiving intense fire from a concealed machine gun. He deliberately exposed himself to draw its fire. Colonel Marm charged 30 meters across open ground and hurled grenades into the enemy position. Although severely wounded, Colonel Marm continued the momentum of his assault on the position and killed the remainder of the enemy, breaking the enemy assault. It is for his gallantry on the battlefield and his extraordinary bravery at the risk of his life that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Walter Joseph Marm, Jr. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
I wish to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Lieutenant Colonel Harold Arthur Fritz, who served in the United States Army and is a resident of the 18th District of Illinois. Lieutenant Colonel Fritz served in Vietnam with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment and was awarded the Medal of Honor for an extraordinary gallantry in action on January 11, 1969. While in Vietnam, Lieutenant Colonel Fritz's armored unit was ambushed and his vehicle took a direct hit. Despite being seriously wounded himself, he fearlessly ran from vehicle to vehicle, positioning, providing aid, and resupplying his men. The enemy attackers charged twice, but under Lieutenant Colonel Fritz's leadership, the unit stood their ground. Following the second charge, he led a brazen counteroffensive, forcing the oncoming enemy to withdraw. With the unit free from attack, he he selfishly made sure that all of his men were cared for before allowing his own wounds to be treated. And so I'm honored to stand and recognize Lieutenant Colonel Harold Arthur Fritz for his undaunted courage, extraordinary bravery, and fearless leadership. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Colorado seek recognition?
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the valiant efforts of Specialized 4th Class Peter C. Lemon of the United States Army. Specialist 4th Class Peter C. Lemon was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy in Vietnam. When the base came under heavy enemy attack, Sergeant Lemon engaged a numerically superior enemy with machine gun and rifle fire from his defensive position until both weapons malfunctioned. He then used hand grenades to fend off the intensified enemy attack launched in his direction. After eliminating all but one of the enemy soldiers in the immediate vicinity, he pursued and disposed of the remaining soldier in hand-to-hand combat. Lemon carried a more seriously wounded comrade to an aid station, and as he returned was wounded a second time by enemy fire. Disregarding his personal injuries, he moved to his position through a hail of small arms and grenade fire. Sergeant Lemon immediately realized that the defensive sector was in danger of being overrun by the enemy and unhesitatingly assaulted the enemy soldiers by throwing hand grenades and engaging in hand-to-hand combat. He was wounded yet a third time, but his determined efforts successfully drove the enemy from the area. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Specialist 4th Class Peter C. Lemon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the Speaker and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the valiant efforts of Colonel Donald Everett Ballard of the Kansas National Guard and formerly of the United States Navy. Colonel Ballard, the corpsman, 2nd class at the time, was with the 3rd Marine Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme fortitude and gallantry in the action on May 16, 1968 in Vietnam. Colonel Ballard's company was ambushed as they were evacuating a landing zone. Upon seeing fellow wounded Marines, Colonel Ballard braved enemy fire to render medical assistance. As they prepared to move the wounded Marine, an enemy soldier hurled a grenade that landed near the Marines. After shouting a warning, Colonel Ballard threw himself upon the grade to protect his fellow soldiers from the blast. When the grenade failed to detonate, Colonel Ballard continued his treatment and saved countless Marines. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Donald Everett Ballard, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair lays before the House the